India has just pulled off something only a handful of nations can. In a series of successful tests, New Delhi demonstrated a multi-layered ballistic missile defense treatment capable of detecting, tracking, and intercepting incoming missile threats.
India is home to more than 1.4 billion people. It is one of the world's fastest growing economies. It has built nuclear weapons, launched missions to the moon, and developed one of the largest railway networks on Earth. Yet, despite these achievements, there is a question that continues to haunt the country. Why are so many Indian cities dirty? Why do overflowing garbage dumps exist alongside luxury apartments? Why do rivers considered sacred receive millions of tons of waste? And why does a nation capable of extraordinary accomplishments continue to struggle with something as basic as cleanliness? The answer is not simple. And contrary to what many people believe, it has very little to do with Indians being naturally unhygienic. To understand the problem, we need to go back thousands of years behind. Was India always dirty? Most people assume India's sanitation problems are ancient, but historically it tells a very different story. More than 4,000 years ago, the cities of the ancient Indus Valley Civilization featured something remarkable. Organized drainage systems, homes were connected to covered drains, wastewater flowed through planned channels. Many houses even had private bathing areas. At a time when much of the world was still struggling with basic urban organization, cities like Mohenjo-daro displayed an understanding of sanitation that was centuries ahead of many contemporary societies. Cleanliness was not an alien concept. In fact, personal hygiene and ritual cleanliness became deeply embedded in many traditions across the Indian subcontinent. So, if cleanliness existed in both urban planning and cultural practices, then clearly the modern problem cannot be explained simply by culture. Something definitely has changed. Now, the answer is the population explosion. For most of human history, India was overwhelmingly rural. People lived in villages. Waste was largely biodegradable. Population density remained relatively manageable. Then came the 20th century. Medical improvements reduced mortality. Economic opportunities drew millions towards cities. Urban population exploded. The challenge was not merely growth. The challenge was the speed of growth. Cities that had been designed for a few 100,000 residents suddenly found themselves hosting millions. Roads became crowded, housing became dense, infrastructure struggled to keep pace. Today, many Indian cities are attempting to serve populations far larger than what their original planners ever imagined. The result is predictable. More people produce more waste. And if waste management systems fail to expand at the same rate, garbage begins to accumulate. Most people think the cleanliness problem begins with someone throws trash onto the street. In reality, this is the only beginning. Waste management is actually a chain. Garbage must be collected, transported, sorted, and recycled, processed, or safely disposed. If any link in that chain fails, the entire system suffers. And in many parts of India, several links fail simultaneously. A household may separate waste, but if the collection system mixes everything together later, segregation becomes meaningless. Garbage may be collected from neighborhoods, but if the processing facilities are insufficient, it eventually piles up in massive landfills. As cities continue growing, waste management grows faster than waste processing capacity. The result can be seen on the outskirts of many urban centers. Mountains of garbage, not because nobody is working, but because the scale of challenge is enormous. The public space problem. There is another factor, one that is harder to discuss. Many Indians maintained extremely clean homes, organized kitchens, and careful housekeeping. Yet, the same attention is not always extended to the public spaces. But why? Yes, we all must ask this question. Why? Social scientists sometimes describe this as a collective responsibility problem. Yes, I am using the keyword collective responsibility problem here. People feel strong ownership over private spaces, but the same ownership is not seen over public spaces. If everyone assumes someone else will clean the street, eventually nobody does. This is not uniquely Indian. The same problem has appeared throughout history in cities around the world. The difference is that in densely populated environments, the consequences become visible. One piece of litter becomes 10, 10 becomes 100, and eventually an entire neighborhood begins to look neglected. The informal workplace, one aspect of India's sanitation story, rarely receives attention. The informal waste sector. Across the country, thousands of waste pickers recover recyclable materials that would otherwise end up in landfills: plastic, paper, metal, cardboard. Their work quietly reduces the burden on municipal systems. Yet, many operate without adequate protection, recognition, or resources. Ironically, some of the people contributing the most toward urban cleanliness remain among the least visible. When people compare India with other countries such as Japan or Singapore, they often overlook an important fact. These countries were not born clean. They invested heavily in sanitation infrastructure. They enforced anti littering laws. They developed efficient waste collection systems. And perhaps most importantly, they spent decades shaping public behavior. Clean cities are not accidents, they are engineered through policies, infrastructure, education, and enforcement. Now, after all this, the question that we would want to ask again is India improving? Despite the challenges, there are signs of progress. Many cities have expanded waste collection services. Public awareness about littering has increased. Toilet access has improved significantly compared with previous decades. Campaigns such as Swachh Bharat Mission brought sanitation into national conversation. The results are mixed. Some regions have improved dramatically, others continue to struggle. But one thing is clear: the issue is receiving more attention than ever before. And that matters because no sanitation problem can be solved until society recognizes it as a priority. In conclusion, so why is India dirty? The answer is not culture. The answer is not history. And it is certainly not because Indians are unacceptable of cleanliness. The real answer lies at the intersection of rapid urbanization, population density, infrastructure gaps, governance challenges, and public behavior. A dirty street is rarely created by one person. It is created by millions of small decisions combined with systems that either work or fail. India's future cities will likely house hundreds of millions more people. The question is no longer why India became dirty. The question is whether India can build that infrastructure, institutions, and civic habits necessary to become clean. Because ultimately, cleanliness is not just about garbage, it is a measure of how well a society manages the spaces that everyone shares.